Three, two, one. You are about to witness a miracle in modern broadcasting. This is Good Morning Copeland. So my New Year's resolution should probably be to be less sexist. And I don't know why I said that. Maybe I should start over. You know, maybe I should just also, instead of talking about things, inviting guests that bring out the worst in me, I should talk about something that I really like. So I decided I'm going to talk about films. I should start doing Copeland reviews. So, I'm not sexist, so I decided to watch Little Women, and this is going to be my first review to prove I am not sexist. So, I am a pretty nitpicky person, and there was probably too many women in it for my taste, but well, I should just go into everything. So, the worst part is it's just nothing but women. But no, that's probably not the best part, or not the worst part. I'll go into the real stuff. So, I am a film guy, and I try to watch every single Oscar nominee as soon as it is announced, or try to watch it before when it's a contender. So I had nothing to do today, decided to go check out Little Women, and my honest opinion is it was fine, very Caucasian. So, yeah, if you're a Caucasian person, then you can probably kick off your shoes and watch this. That's probably not a very nice thing to say. That's kind of the reality. It's unfortunate. But besides just the overall tone and feeling, it's a period piece. I usually hate period pieces. And the thing is, they're usually really dry. I've tried watching movies from the 1960s that are period pieces. So The Lion in Winter. I tried watching Beckett, and it was just a little bit too slow, so I needed to stop for a second. But the thing about period pieces is usually the time really has a limit on the way it's delivered. So what happened here was all the actors and actresses, they had Saoirse Ronan, Emma Watson, Florence Pugh, Timothée Chalamet, and the actress who played Beth. I don't know her name, so we'll pretend that we know who she is. I'll look that up because I don't want to be sexist. They have a younger generation of actors up against people like Meryl Streep, Laura Dern, Bob Odenkirk makes an appearance, and the thing is, when the younger people, so Saoirse, Emma Watson, and Florence Pugh and Beth Lady are performing. The thing is, it takes place in, I want to say it was Connecticut. It's New England, and it's supposed to be the antebellum era, and so none of us were alive, so I can't tell you how they exactly spoke. It's just something about it, the way they were talking, the cadence, the accents, the overall speed, it just seemed very modern. Okay, so just to prove I'm not sexist, Beth March is played by Eliza Scanlon. I probably don't know who she is because I've probably never seen any of her other movies, so I'm sorry, Eliza Scanlon, you are a good soul. So there's this thing called the California accent. I have it, and it's if you're a Californian, you just sound like a Californian as opposed to any other normal person. So, looking at Saoirse Ronan, Emma Watson, Florence Pugh, they have their descent, I want to say, is more of the UK, Ireland. I believe, yeah, was Florence Pugh from? I swear she was from overseas. So they have. If I've never heard Florence Pugh talk, not in a movie, in an interview. So I believe that she is. Hold on, everyone, bear with me. Are you guys bearing with me right now? Okay, I'm looking up to make sure Florence Pugh is not American. I believe, yeah. So she is English because I saw Midsummer as well, and that first movie I saw her in, and I had no idea that she was English, because she pulls off a very good, like, modern American accent. The thing is that in America there are, like, a variety of accents, and when I think of, like, New England, there is the transatlantic accent, and I don't know if that was still existing back then, or if it was something that radio announcers in the 1940s started so that way people from England could also understand them, because that was one of the points. So um, it seems just like a very millennial adaptation, and maybe it's not a bad thing, but for me, I noticed it, and it just kind of annoyed me. So besides that, there's also a scene, I don't know if this existed back then, but it's Timothy Chalamet and Florence Pugh are playing the game Ninja just in passing, while Meryl Streep and Emma Watson and Saoirse Ronan are having a conversation. You see them in the background playing Ninja. I don't know if that existed back in 1865 or whatever, but that kind of, so if that existed, let me know. Other positives, I don't know if that sounded like a positive, but what it does have going is it is a period piece, and it does have like a nice flow, so it doesn't get boring, but part of it is it's non-linear. So you see simultaneously what's going on 7 years ago versus present, and I'm probably going to start spoiling the shit out of it, so if you don't care, who cares? So Beth dies, and that's fine, because she's the least attractive one. No, it's a joke, I swear I'm not sexist. So, but what's going on is, you see back then when Joe, the characters, Joe, Meg, Amy, and Beth are growing up, and I believe they were supposed to be teenagers, because it says 7 years ago, and later on, Timothy Chalamet and Florence Pugh are having a conversation about when they were younger, and it's supposed to take place in the modern time 7 years ago. So Florence Pugh is playing a 13-year-old, but she still looks like she is 20-something, and if that's the case, it distracted the hell out of me. So, because they look the same way throughout, the only way that differentiates between 7 years ago versus modern time is the filters that they put on the camera. So there is the blue tint, as opposed to more of a yellow tint to represent back then. So modern times is it looks more gray. It's the blue tint camera. And whenever it wants to show you 7 years ago, yellow tint, so it looks more sunny. If I was not a camera expert, I'm actually not, but the thing is, it was just confusing, because at some points I wasn't sure if the setting was back then or present. So, and like I said, I've never read did I even say that? I've never read the book. This is the first time I've ever been exposed to Little Women. I know it exists, but that's all I know. So now that I've seen it, I want to know what the story is. I don't know if it's linear or if what it was supposed to be. So that was just distracting. But as far as it goes, it had a good pace, but there was not a lot of times where being out of order paid off. Because it's showing you, Joe's trying to be a writer, and she just made $25. Now we're going to cut back to 7 years ago, and Civil War is breaking out, and there's no men around the house because of the war. Cut back to modern times, you find out Beth is sick. Cut back to the times, you see that everyone has their own artistic ability. Cut back to time, the whole family's trying to get together, and it gets kind of crazy. The only time it paid off for me, at least, it shows you the modern time. Jo is about to publish her new novel, Little Women, and the guy who is trying to publish it says that if there is a main character that is a woman, then she has to be married or dead by the end, and he's trying to convince her, oh, you have to have her get married, because it's romantic, and at the same time, or I should say back in the before time, people are trying to convince Jo to marry a suitor named Frederick, because he showed up at their estate just to say hello, and everyone realizes that they have a perfect fit for each other. So, there's this parallel, and Joe's saying that she doesn't want to get married, and she's trying to argue with the publisher that, she can be a strong woman, she can be a spinster, because we see earlier that Joe wants to be a spinster. But then, as soon as he convinces her that she needs to get married, we see Frederick and Joe admit their undying love for each other, and I thought that was a sweet moment. So there are sweet moments scattered about, but there are zero tits. So if you were expecting tits in Little Women, no, there's none. But other sweet moments, there's a scene where Timothée Chalamet confesses his love to Joe, and they're outside at, I believe it was at a wedding, at Meg's wedding. I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly, but they go aside, and he admits everything. And at first, he's shown to be kind of bratty, where he doesn't want to do what he's told. There's a tutor that's trying to teach him Latin, and he just wants to ogle the ladies outside. But then, as it goes on, he does have a little bit of a development, and he admits his love, and Joe turns him down. And I thought, well, we're at least seeing him at a very vulnerable point. If we do not see a character being very vulnerable, then it's hard to like them. Otherwise, they're Christ-like, and that's really boring. So, anytime that Timothée Chalamet was on screen, the person behind me had to vocally let it known that Timothée Chalamet is the most handsome person in the world. So she would be talking to the person beside her, and would just keep saying, "Oh, Timothée Chalamet is my favorite. He is so handsome. Is it hot in here?" That's what she was literally saying. And I could have been an asshole, told her to shut up, but I was just letting it happen, because sometimes I'm an ass at the theaters. It wasn't really a full theater. It was probably 2 or 3 or 4 behind me, and then a bunch of boomers in the back that would also just start talking whatever they had on their mind at any point. And whatever. People liked it. Performance-wise, it was fine. It's just, I don't know if there would be better casting, and I don't know if I was really hooked, because, like I said, I don't know if the way that people from Connecticut talk, I've never met someone from Connecticut, so I don't know what they sound like, but I would assume that they have a more transatlantic drawl or something. And if you are, let me know, and also speak into a microphone and then send it to me. Or, I'll just listen to Bernie Sanders, because he's from Vermont. But even in that case, I feel like they needed more of an accent, because, like the transatlantic, they would usually say, like, cod instead of cod, but instead they just sound like Californians, and they had the energy of Californians. I don't know, it was nice to see it carefree, but it just kind of took me out of time, because, I don't know, the 1860s seemed really oppressed, especially with the war. No one should have been happy in this movie. That's actually my biggest complaint. Everyone should have been sad, like I am all the time. I hate movies where people are happy. The music was okay. There were some points where it was noticeable and just seemed more emotionally sappy than it did natural. I like it when music just kind of blends into the scene rather than tries to direct the emotions. Like, for instance, I point out Interstellar. There was that scene where Matthew McConaughey is like, I know I'm talking about the wrong movie, but still, just giving you the point that, like, in Interstellar, there's these really emotional scenes that are driven by music, when it could just rely on the emotion alone. And, like, to contrast that, there's 2001: A Space Odyssey, where you're deprogramming Hal, and it's just completely quiet, and just all atmosphere. I think this movie, Little Women, not 2001, this movie could have relied more on atmosphere and tits, but less women, but more tits. Maybe like a destruction derby, like they have, like, because it's like the 1860s, they could have, like, ran all their horses and carriages into each other, and that would have been. So if you're into action movies, this is not your movie. This is more just like a romance about kind of bratty people that are white. But that also leads me to the point of character development. So when we first meet Jo, she is trying to sell a short story to the publisher that we see throughout the movie, and she kind of the story that she writes gets drastically cut so that way the publisher can publish it because he said it's too long, too droll, and she kind of relents so she can get the money. And then she starts writing other stuff for the person that becomes her romantic interest later on, Frederick. She shows it to Frederick, and Frederick is like, I'm going to be honest, this is terrible. He doesn't say exactly what he doesn't like, but her reaction is to just instantly like shut it off, shut him down, where she doesn't accept criticism. And the thing is, he doesn't state what his criticism is. So, for instance, if he had said something like, your pacing is too slow, if he had said, your grammar is off, the tone, the atmosphere, it's just all wrong. If he had said something specific, she could have defended it because, as we learn later on, what she is writing is her personal experiences. She is writing about growing up. So if he had said that it's too slow, she could have defended it by saying, well, this is my personal experience. The reason why it's slow is because this is the detail that I'm encapsulating from my own life. But instead, because she doesn't ask what the specific complaint is, and because she cannot defend it, she just comes off as being egotistical. He says, this is terrible, and she says, no, you're terrible, I'm leaving. So, if it was better, I mean, it could have established that her character growth would be getting over her ego in that sense, or it makes it seem like she's going to learn to accept criticism. And I know I'm not alone on that, because the people behind me said the same thing out loud. As soon as she walked away, one of them said, well, maybe she needs to learn to accept criticism. And every character needs to be humbled in the story, because there's a few of them that we get to see grow based on what they don't want to be faced with. So the good example would be Emma Watson. She states really early on, I don't want to be poor, I want to be rich, I want a wealthy suitor. And then when she gets married to the tutor, we know that he's not very well off, we know he's not very rich. And at one point they complain about how Emma Watson just used a bunch of money to buy silk for a dress. And there's a very romanticized banter where the man's like, oh, I just wanted you to be beautiful, don't care about what I want. And Emma Watson's like, oh, I just wanted to be like everyone else. And you get to see that conflict develop, where she's learning that she has to accept being humble based on her situation, that she's not rich, so she can't have the extravagances. Is that the word, extravagances? Yeah, extravagances that she had back earlier. And later on, she becomes more humble. I don't want to say obedient and faithful to her husband, but she learns to love him for who he is rather than what he has. And that's a very fine development, very fine growth. And you get to see how other people view this. They say that she is stupid for marrying someone poor, but then you get to see that she actually is happy. So in that aspect, it's just fine, because there's growth. So then I started thinking about the other characters. So, for instance, Saoirse Ronan. What is Jo's weakness? How does Jo develop? And I was expecting her weakness to be that she can't accept criticism, and because I've never seen Little Women, I've never read it, and I was expecting it to kind of grow along the lines of where she has to learn to accept that, no, she is imperfect, but other people's input can help her lead to be a more perfect human being, which is what criticism is. And instead, her conflict is that she thinks she is unlovable and doesn't deserve to be loved, and she just has to learn to be loved, and she decides to put interests of family first, and she is about to give up being a writer, but then she sees something from a book that she wrote for Beth, who at this point has now died, and she decides she wants to be a writer again. And the thing is, if her growth was not, or it was learning how to put family ahead, or use it as a motivator, it's not really good, because we see her care about her family. All the sisters care about each other, and there is some conflict between them that really quickly. There's a point where Florence Pugh and Saoirse Ronan are jealous about each other, and Florence Pugh burns the book that Joe's writing, and then it eventually escalates into Florence Pugh falling through the ice while ice skating, and Saoirse has to save her life. But as Saoirse Ronan's character Jo, she needed a better form of growth, a better form of development. Because if you establish early on that she can't take criticism, that's fine. But because they didn't establish that early on, the reason why she was against criticism was because it was too personal for her, they didn't do a good job establishing that. Now, moving on to Florence Pugh's character, Amy. I'm trying to think of how she grew. She kind of does, but it's more so. There's the 7 years ago versus present day. There really isn't much. She's just a teenager. She's supposed to be a teenager, but she looks like a 20-year-old. And what happens is she's a schoolgirl who is kind of rebellious and gets hit by the teacher for disobeying, and at the same time develops a crush on Timothée Chalamet's character, Laurie. And that was kind of it. But then in modern times, the way that she develops is, you see that back then she was told that in order to inherit her aunt's, like her ring and more of her wealth, what she would have to do is she would have to put kind of her freestyle, her free spirit aside and become more of a refined woman and marry into a wealthy family and just be a good example for that era. And what she learns to do is to put that aside and instead focus on who she loves, because she's about to marry some wealthy guy, but she doesn't love him. But Timothée Chalamet is now in love with her later on, and she decides to marry him. So as far as growth goes, I mean, I was kind of satisfied with how that turned out. And then there's Beth. We don't really see her grow. She's just a piano player. She's kind of like a music prodigy, but because at the time there's not much she can do. She's just respected for her music, but no one gives her a chance to really play it. But then there is another character that was introduced, who is Laurie's dad. I want to say his name was James. And for some reason, despite he kind of is in it, but not so frequently, but when he is, he really does a very great job. And I don't remember his name, but the character, I'll say James. I'll pretend that's the right answer, and if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, Mr. Laurie's father. So we actually see development on him. We learn that Laurie has a sister that is dead, and James says that she was a musician. So when Beth goes over to, play the piano to make sure it's always in shape, we see that James, he can be strict and stern, but we see him I assume he was a composer or the orchestra director, because we start to see him do the hand gestures of a conductor while Beth plays, and he's not even in her sight. He's just kind of eavesdropping, and it was a really pleasant scene. And then we learn that he's really close to Beth because his daughter was a piano player and that she is a good filler. However, when Beth dies, I felt the worst for him because he has now essentially lost 2 daughters. So it's cool that I could feel that way for him, despite how infrequently he was there, but he was written well enough so that we could care for him. So it's cool to see growth on him, but I think everyone could have grown in their own way, despite how little there was. And there's one scene that it's so weird and immediate, but so Emma Watson at one point when she is a teenager is complaining, "Oh, I want to be rich and happy, and I want money," and then it's Christmas, and they're waiting for breakfast, and then I think it's her mom, played by Laura Dern, comes in and says, "There's a poor family down the street, and they don't have any food, so we should give them all of our Christmas food." And then all the daughters are like, "Well, is that what Dad would want?" "Yeah, it would be. Yeah, okay." So they all give the food to the poor family. And at first I was thinking, oh God, are they going to instantly not let her grow? Because she's one of the people that also decides, yeah, we should give them the food. For instance, if they had done something like have her be like more selfish, I think that would have been pretty funny and that would have allowed for more growth. I was just worried they were going to instantly have the growth occur in 1 minute as opposed to the span of a whole movie. Not enough gun violence, because this is during the Civil War, and there could have been like military bombs going off, probably some helicopters. No, it's the Civil War. I'm sorry, that's not right. Or did it have tanks? I don't know. So I mean, it's nominated for 6 Oscars right now, and people are complaining that Greta Gerwig got snubbed, and the editing kind of was against it, and I don't know what Greta Gerwig had to say in, but as a movie that was just the direction of it, it was fine. The thing is, it wasn't great because this year has been fantastic, and I think my favorite movie, I haven't seen Parasite, but I already know it's something that I'm going to really love, so I'm going to have that as a placeholder. If the Oscars was in my control for Best Director, it would be, I'm just going to assume Parasite's a placeholder. I haven't seen it yet, so don't judge me. But otherwise, there is The Irishman, Martin Scorsese, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino. The Safdie brothers did Uncut Gems. Robert Eggers did The Lighthouse, and that's already 4 or 5. And, you can argue that Quentin Tarantino or Scorsese could be swapped out, but then it's been a good year. And it's weird for me to say so soon, but there's just some years where I'm very slow to find stuff that I like, and for instance, 2009. Okay, so I'm pulling up what it's nominated for right now. So Best Picture, Best Actress for Saoirse Ronan, Supporting Actress for Florence Pugh, Adapted Screenplay for Greta Gerwig, Original Score for Alexandre Desplat, and Best Costume Design. I think art direction should be one of the things it's nominated for. Score, I don't know. I like Alexandre Desplat. I really love what he did for. I believe he did Moonrise Kingdom, but he also did The Grand Budapest Hotel, and when he won for that, that was awesome. So, picture, actress, supporting actress, screenplay. It's okay, I guess, but it's something I can't openly say I am locked in, because I haven't seen everything this year. But the fact that I am uncertain for those ones, because Saoirse Ronan and Florence Pugh, they did fine, but at the same time, Marriage Story, that's one I saw this year, and I know for sure that Laura Dern and Scarlett Johansson, I for sure would lock them in their position because you get to see how they are as characters, and they're very strong. I like Florence Pugh more in Midsummer. That's not supporting actress, so that'd be lead actress. But because she does have acting chops. So I think so. Gold Derby is a website that's like betting odds for award shows, and they have their own Gold Derby awards, and they have the category for breakout star of the year, and I say Florence Pugh is atop the top just because Midsummer was fucking nuts. So like I'm not opposed to them being nominated for all the stuff. It's just a really busy year, and I need to see what else they're up against before I will commit to like that. So besides that, if you're a mom, you'll probably like it. If you need tits and violence, this is not going to be for you, so that means it's not for me. If you're sexist, unlike me, then you're not going to like all the women. On the upside, all the women are babes. But overall, when I was watching it at first, I was thinking like 5 or 6, but when I think back on it, maybe more like 6 or 7 out of 10. But it's something I'm just can't decide on a score just yet. But probably it's not perfect. Because as a theatrical experience, I wasn't. It's not like my life has changed. It's just a movie I saw, and so it's somewhere around like a 6, possibly 5 or 7. It's somewhere on that spectrum. So if you want to go see it, and you'll see what it's made for. So that was my first movie review. Like I said, I am not sexist. So you can put down your torches, please, and let me live my life. So otherwise, thank you to my one real subscriber. You know who you are. Thank you to my 5 bots for not getting blocked yet. And do I usually end the show with like a catchphrase? I don't remember. Anyway, that was my first movie review. I'm probably going to do more. I don't give a shit what you say. Thank you. Tell me if you want me to do more movie reviews. Bye.